Ladies, gentlemen, am I often forgotten, but certainly not by me, Subjugation Wards, welcome to the channel and welcome to another video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at a budget version of my Magic Raksha guide, and overall the preset is pretty cheap compared to how much damage it can actually do, so let's go ahead and get into this guide. Now real fast before we get into this guide, I do have a community Discord, the link will be in the description below, so feel free to check that out if you want to go ahead and join, feel free. Anyways though, enough selling out, let's go ahead and get into this guide. So here's the gear and preset and whatnot that I've put together for this guide.
Holy Jesus! What is that?
Now I know the first thing y'all probably saw was the perks on this gear. So getting right into it, yes, these are best in slot perks as far as magic is concerned, other than the enhanced devoted 4, but invigorating 4 really doesn't have a purpose if you're not using FSOA. And you might be thinking to yourself, wait, this is a budget guide using best in slot perks, how does this make sense? Well, it turns out perks like Crackle 4, Relent 5, Impatient 4, Mobile, or Impatient 4, Devoted 4, these are all relatively cheap perks to get. Enhanced Devoted is very inexpensive as far as a perk, and the only expensive one on here is Biting 4. However, you can do Biting 3 for a very cheap method, and being that you're not crit reliant for this setup to work, it's not going to make too much of a difference, so no need to worry there. Now the perks on the weapons themselves are just kind of simple basic perks. I didn't go expensive on those, although I couldn't fit them on screen. I have Precise 6, Equal 4 as two separate gizmos on the dual wield, and the Laniakea Spear has the same thing on it, but that doesn't really matter as far as pool clearing is concerned. So figured I'd get that one out of the way first. The other bit you might be questioning are the relics used. Now normally in relics, as far as magic is concerned, I am using Death Ward and Fury of the Small with Conservation of Energy. However, I didn't realize until after recording the example kill that I had these relics on left over from some Zami kills, and so honestly just do what works for you. Zerk Fury is going to work just fine, as well as Font of Life, or if you want to run Fury of the Small for the extra 1% on basics, feel free to do that as well. Zerk Fury is nice for those who don't mind camping lower HP to get some more damage effects, being that obviously if you're lower HP, you're gonna do more damage as a percent base increase. So if you're sitting around half HP, you're getting roughly 2.5–3% as far as the damage increase is concerned, and that's equivalent to a tier 99 prayer, so it's nothing really to sneeze at. However, just do what's comfortable for you. As far as the rest of the gear is concerned, the Blast Diffusion boots and the Carapac wrist wraps are there because they are very cheap for how much damage they can actually help put out on a setup like this. Carapac wrist wraps are nice for combust, being that you can have all the hits hit instantly instead of over time, so if you're trying to make a little bit of a time crunch or something like that, if you're trying to get to a phase or something, it's nice to just have all the combust hits go out at once. So for, I think these are like 1.5 to 2 mil for the gloves, you can't beat them. And Blast Diffusion boots have been good since their introduction, and they're very cheap now, anywhere from 3 to 5 mil. So those are honestly a no-brainer, and if you're wondering about the upgrade for these, the Shadow Spike, you could Iron Man yourself a Shadow Spike if you want. However, it is not really worthwhile as an upgrade in my opinion. It's very much a last upgrade that you would do for magic after things even like getting tier 92 armor, you know, the boot upgrade is a very end game or late game item, so I would just sell any shadow spikes that you get. The subjugation armor itself is just an example. I put this here just to show that as long as you have, you know, some relatively decent gear that can hold some perks, in this case it's the bare minimum, being you have to have level 70 armor or higher to augment, that you can go do a lot of different bosses, and you would be surprised how far this gear can go. Obviously, if you have something better, like the Hellwar armor from God Wars 2, or if you have Virtus from Nex, or even if you have Tectonic, those are all going to work here. You know, any gear improvement you may or may not have, definitely bring that gear improvement over the preset shown here. The tier 85 dual wields are again just an example of cheap weapons that with the use of gconc can do a lot of damage. At the time of recording, they're about 30 to 35 mil for the main hand and offhand. Considering the damage that they can pump out, very much worthwhile to use, and I honestly would not do any dual wield upgrades until you own FSOA, and these are more than capable of serving you just fine until you get there. The rune pouches just follow the standard PVME rune pouch setup, and it's just for having all spells on spellbook swap and whatnot. I don't really use any spells here. Sometimes I disrupt shield if you you have Disrupt Shield, definitely use it as needed. It is sometimes kind of nice if you're in the middle of AS Fix or you want to use this Fix P4 and the tail swipe is coming. You can go ahead and use it there to just block out the tail swipe hit. But other than that, I don't really use it too much. Sometimes I use it in conjunction with Vitpot if I just want to stay inside of my Sunshine during either the Phase 1-2 transition or the Phase 2-3 transition. When all of those rocks are kind of falling down around you, it is nice to block out one of the rock hits. So if you have it, use it to your advantage. If not, it's not going to make too much of a difference as far as kills are concerned. The ring is just a Reaver's ring. It's pretty cheap to own and does a lot as far as damage is concerned. The stats on it are very high, and the crit chance is always nice because the more crits you get, the more damage you're going to be doing. And compared to something like Channeler's Ring, which I believe is almost double the cost if not more, thus also requiring an upgrade or an enchantment to it to make it competitive, you really can't beat Reaver's Ring as far as best bang for your buck is concerned. The EOF just has a Gothic Staff in it, nothing too fancy there, and the Zuck Cape is just a placeholder. It's the one that I have. If you have the standard Mage Zuck Cape, that will work perfectly fine, as you just need to buff Omni Power. I just have the hybrid one, so that's the one that I use. There is no stat or effect difference between the hybrid cape and the 3 combat style capes, so we use whichever one you have. Now, as far as the inventory is concerned, the food is mostly just an example. Honestly, if you're managing your soul split flicking correctly, you shouldn't be taking any damage at all, really. Maybe I use, a couple blubbers and a rest per kill. Sometimes it's there for, an emergency case where you're really kind of pumping through on damage and you're really trying to juice it out, or just something goes wrong and you miss a prayer flick. It's always nice to have the backup food. However, this amount of food for these kills is almost overkill, and I would not recommend using solid food here at all, really, being that it's just not necessary to have the single eat heal. So, with Adren Drop, you're not doing as much damage inside of your ults because you're taking away adrenaline, which is needed for thresholds and ultimates, and overall adds kind of inconsistency into the work. So I would just recommend going blue blubbers and G-Rest. You could even downgrade these to green blubbers if you really wanted to. I think at time of recording, green blubbers are only 550 to 600 GP each, whereas blue blubbers can go for quite a bit more. And if you really are concerned about healing power at this boss, you could swap out the Guthix Rest for Saradomin Bruise. However, once you get used to the boss and you kind of work through it and you're used to doing kills here, you will not need that much food. The expensive spices are just kind of a filler item that I bring to help buff the HP of blue blubbers, but as I stated previously, it's not really needed. And the portent there is just something that I bring to almost every boss now, being that the puzzle box is in game and we don't have to bring bladed dive swaps anymore. I just put that in its place. The Vitpot is just for the transition on phase 1 and 2 or phase 2 and 3 respectively. On either of the rock falls, if you're inside of an ultimate, you can go ahead and use it there to stay inside of your ultimate relatively danger free and just keep doing lots of damage. Now, you may be looking over where the A-pot is and see a shield and a defender. I went ahead and put the defender in here as a planted feet swap for those who don't have Greater Sunshine, and if you're using this guide, I don't expect you to have it either. And the tier 90 shield there is just for the occasional res. However, defender will work just fine. You don't need to bring the tier 90 shield at all. I just put items like this in here to kind of showcase how much space you actually have to work with as far as your inventory is concerned. And if there's other items that you want to bring that you see fit will help you in a kill, feel free to do so. But things like portents and expensive spices, different shields and whatnot, you can take these out as you see fit to add in different items and whatnot. Now, one of the big ticket items that is very important here is Laniakia's Spear and the Laceration Boots. These items allow you to bladed dive on the pools just after the phase 2 to 3 transition occurs and prevent Raksha from healing. This gear is not going to be doing pool skips or anything fancy like this, so you definitely do need to bladed dive the pools. Now, if you do happen to mess up one of the bladed dives, you can use abilities like Dragon Breath and Corrupt Blast to help mitigate some of the pools. However, bladed diving is definitely the best option for this. Vulnerability bombs are kind of self-explanatory. It's a free 10% damage that you just toss out onto the target. And if you want to 4-tick in vuln spells to keep it cost down, go ahead, but I don't really see that as necessary. The GP per hour at this boss, once you get used to it and you're doing kills consistently, is extraordinary. Rico, I think, is almost 1.1 or over 1.1 billion GP right now. Greater Chain is almost 750 mil. I think they're selling for around 730 right now. Divert is kind of a meme and it only sells for I think anywhere from 10 to 20 mil, but the Shadow Spike is also another anywhere from I think it's 150 to 250 mil GP, so the rare items definitely have value here. And the commons leave a little bit to be desired, however that's kind of the nature of bossing. You're basically not making much until you get a big drop, and then you have all the GP. Aura usage is just using Maniacal. I don't use anything else here really, other than I will pull out Majrat Aura if I'm doing some type of weird hybrid setup, but that is a different topic for a different video. However, if you would like to see a hybrid guide here, feel free to leave it in the comments below. However, this guide would be much more endgame focused, so keep that in mind. One more note about the relics used here. Yes, these relics do require 120 archaeology in order for you to have the relic power to sustain them, and if you don't have 120 archaeology, then I would recommend just doing something like Fury of the Small, Death Ward, and maybe Font of Life or Blessing of Head, or something else to kind of fill in there to make things a little bit easier for yourself. But archaeology is not too bad of a 120 to get, and the benefits from the skill are immense. So if ever you find yourself working on projects or doing something or watching YouTube or anything else that you would be doing throughout your day, archaeology is decently AFK and doesn't take too terribly long to get, so I would highly recommend getting 120 archaeology. Anyways, now let's go ahead and get into the example kill I have for y'all, and then maybe wrap it up with a little bit of a discussion after the kill. Alrighty, we have the budget preset loaded up and ready to go. Go ahead and turn on our prayers. I am making sure to use the tier 95 prayer, as tier 99 is pretty expensive and is pretty far down on the list. And from that tile, once you join the instance, go ahead and surge once. HP overload just in case, and then I like to surge. Devotion, start my Sunshine with APOT, and then target cycle into a Smoke Cloud gconc, E-Breath, a Bleed, fourth ability as Omni Power, gconc, Basic, and I'll go ahead and get my fix off here. And we'll hit a Tsunami just for funsies, into a gconc. You hit a couple bleeds, and then maybe into attendees. gconc wild. Into an asphyx. Didn't quite get the skip, but that's fine. Our second Omni Power off. I'll go ahead and D-Breath and hit Combust. And here I'm just going to charge a Detonate. And I'm just going to Threshold here. Maybe release it with Deep Impact. Go for another Wild Magic Asphyx. Hit another Rack and Ruin, and I'm going to try and walk this one. Got the walk value. Didn't hit too high, but it is what it is. Another Omni Power should get us close. Be mindful of our Ripper Demon. I'm pretty bad about remembering to spam Ripper Demon, but just keep an eye on your summoning bar. And that'll definitely help out with damage. And here I'm going to swap back to Insight Fear. Do a couple more abilities. Start bladed diving these pools. I was a little bit early on that one, but it seemed to work just fine. Off global cooldown there, so that one didn't work. I'm not the best about timing these, but as long as you just have like Hurricane or Cleave or something available to clear out the rest of the pool, you'll get your bladed dive reset. It shouldn't be too much of an issue. Here, I'm just going to Tsunami on the little Shadow Manifestation, and then swap over. I'm just going to do Tendies here to get some adrenaline up. An Omni into a gconc. Wild Magic Asphyx. About 50k off, so I'll just kind of surge around here. You hit a couple G-staffs. The rotations, as you can tell, are not quite solid. I'm usually just kind of free-forming here when I do damage, but making sure to get off, you know, at least an Omni Power or two inside of a Sunshine, a couple Wild Magics, a couple Asphyxiates, maybe a Detonate or Attendees. And as long as you kind of follow those general basics, then you should be fine. Now here on P4, just make sure to call your familiar and then stand on this tile. And then when he does his tail swipe, back, and then head back in. And he'll do 2 tail swipes here into this little DPS check. And for the second one, I usually just stand out because it doesn't matter anyways on this part. Swap back over to Insight Fear just to build up some stacks. Maybe a bleed into a gconc just to help wipe out this part. And I like to dive around and collect some of the shadow anima. And then drop a sunshine here, and it's just the same process, it's just you're now on the west side instead of the east side. Get gconc here into an omni. Wild magic, take a step back. Get auto 4 hit asphyxia. 2, 3, into a D breath, so then I can gconc here. Head back out, maybe into another G staff, and finish it off with another G staff. And that is pretty much a kill with this gear at Raksha. Now I do want to make a couple of quick notes here. As far as rotations are concerned, you can follow the ones from PVME, and those will work just fine. You know, kind of the example rotations, where you can go for like a double Omni power, or you can go for, obviously you want double Wild Magic and double Asphyx. Those are kind of the two bread and butter abilities as far as Sunshine rotation is concerned. I do swap back and forth between Insight Fear and Exsanguinate, and that is just for the Tsunami buff. All you have to do is have your spellbook here somewhere on your screen, just wherever you find it easiest. I have mine next to my ability bar, and then you just right-click Autocast. And then in combat, you won't have to sit there and confirm to go back and forth. As you see, you can just right-click Autocast just like that. Now, as far as spell swapping is concerned, if you have manual spellcasting on, so Escape, Settings, Gameplay, combat and action bar, manual spell casting, without going into a giant discussion on what this is, you can keybind spells here, but the problem is later on if you're trying to swap spells or maybe sneak in auto attacks and other things with, say, like Blood Barrage or Ice or something like that for an Ice Rack. The problem you're going to run into is if you don't have this option on, your auto attack will just, you know, switch around as you're pressing the keybinds. Like if you press the spell, that is now your auto set, which for in this case, it's not going to be too big of a deal because you're just switching between Exsanguinate and Insight Fear. The only problem you will run into is if you hit Blood Barrage with Detonate to release it with, say, like a Rack and Ruin or a Wild or maybe E-Staff or something like that. And in almost all use cases with magic, I will go ahead and use manual spellcasting because I find it much easier to be able to just get out single autos with maybe Blood or Ice Barrage, or maybe I want to do something else and not have it mess with whatever I set as my auto select spell. Now, as far as kill times are concerned here, as you see, we've got a 350 that kill. That's just a rough example. I've had some kills as fast as 330 with this preset. I've had some of them go as slow as 4 minutes when I'm not paying attention or I don't quite make the skips and whatnot. It's just going to be something that you'll have to kind of play around and experiment with, but hopefully you can use this example kill as a data point to reference to and kind of pull bits and pieces from to help you with your kills here at Raksha. Anyways though, I hope this video was helpful, and let's go ahead and roll that outro. Ladies, gentlemen, and I did not forget about you subjugation wards. Thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate your viewership. As always, have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, nighttime, whatever it is, wherever you are, and I will see you next time for the next guide. Peace!